The automotive industry has given us remarkable innovations and timeless classics over the decades. But for every engineering triumph, there's been a spectacular failure. In their quest to stand out in crowded markets, some manufacturers have released vehicles so fundamentally flawed in concept, design, or execution that they leave us questioning the sanity of the executives who approved them. From bizarre styling choices to catastrophic mechanical failures and baffling marketing decisions, these automotive disasters represent the perfect storm of misguided ambition and corporate hubris. Here are 11 of the stupidest cars of all time that will make you wonder what their creators were thinking when they rolled these mechanical misfits off the production line. Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support. Number 11. The 1958 Edsel. The 1958 Edsel is perhaps the most infamous automotive marketing disaster in history. Ford spent unprecedented amounts of money, approximately $250 million, developing and promoting this new brand, only to see it fail spectacularly within 3 years. The car's most distinctive feature, its vertical horse-collar grille, was immediately polarizing, with critics likening it to an Oldsmobile sucking a lemon, or less flattering anatomical comparisons. Beyond its controversial styling, the Edsel suffered from abysmal quality control. Cars arrived at dealerships with missing parts, doors that wouldn't close properly, and engines that leaked oil. The much-hyped Teletouch push-button transmission located in the center of the steering wheel proved confusing and unreliable. Ford had conducted virtually no consumer research to determine if there was even a market for a mid-priced luxury car during what turned out to be a recession year. The timing couldn't have been worse. Launched in September 1957, just as the economy was tanking. Despite offering decent performance with its E400 V8 engine producing 345 horsepower, the Edsel's flaws overshadowed any positives. By 1960, Ford had discontinued the brand after losing millions, making Edsel synonymous with business failure for generations to come. Number 10. The 1971 Ford Pinto. The 1971 Ford Pinto became notorious for its deadly design flaw that prioritized profits over human lives. This subcompact car was rushed into production in just 25 months to compete with Japanese imports flooding the American market. During development, Ford engineers discovered a critical safety issue. In rear-end collisions as slow as 20 miles per hour, the Pinto's fuel tank could rupture and ignite. Located between the rear axle and bumper with minimal protection, the tank was vulnerable to being punctured by protruding bolts during impacts. Internal Ford documents later revealed the company conducted a chilling cost-benefit analysis, calculating that paying out settlements for deaths and injuries would be cheaper than fixing the design flaw. This callous calculation became public after numerous incidents where Pintos burst into flames after minor rear-end collisions, resulting in horrific burn injuries and deaths. Most infamously, in the 1978 Grimshaw case, a 13-year-old passenger suffered devastating burns over 90% of his body when a Pinto erupted in flames after being rear-ended. Despite decent fuel economy and handling, the Pinto's reputation was irreparably damaged. The scandal ultimately forced a recall of 1.5 million vehicles in 1978 and forever tarnished Ford's reputation, becoming a textbook case of corporate ethics failure in business schools worldwide. Number 9. The Yugo GV. The Yugo GV, imported to America starting in 1985, earned its reputation as one of the worst cars ever sold on U.S. soil. This Yugoslav-made economy car was marketed at the irresistible price of $3,990 and about $11,000 today, making it the cheapest new car available in America. The Yugo was essentially a licensed and modified Fiat 127, but with significantly worse build quality. Its 1.1-liter engine produced a paltry 55 horsepower, taking 14 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, if it could get there at all. Reliability problems were legendary. Engines would sometimes simply fall out of their mounts. Electrical systems would fail without warning, and transmissions would disintegrate after just a few thousand miles. Consumer Reports famously found 40 major problems within the first few thousand miles of testing. The flimsy construction was so poor that one Yugo was famously blown off the Mackinac Bridge in Michigan during a windstorm, plunging 200 feet to the water below. Quality control was virtually non-existent, with vehicles arriving at dealerships missing parts or with obvious defects. Despite these glaring issues, over 140,000 Yugos were sold to unsuspecting American consumers before imports ceased in 1992. Today, the Yugo serves as a punchline for automotive jokes and a cautionary tale about the false economy of extremely cheap transportation. Number 8. The 1982 Cadillac Cimarron. The 1982 Cadillac Cimarron represents one of the most embarrassing examples of badge engineering in automotive history. In a desperate attempt to compete with smaller European luxury cars like the BMW 3 Series, General Motors took the economical Chevrolet Cavalier, a basic compact car selling for around $6,000, added leather seats, nicer trim, and Cadillac badges, then had the audacity to price it at nearly $12,000 and about $36,000 today. Despite Cadillac's marketing efforts, the Cimarron couldn't hide its humble origins. Its underpowered 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine produced a meager 88 horsepower, utterly failing to deliver the performance expected from a luxury brand. The interior, while dressed up with leather and wood accents, still felt like sitting in an economy car. Even worse, the Cimarron's handling, ride quality, and refinement were nowhere near the standards set by its European competitors. Luxury car buyers weren't fooled by the superficial upgrades, and traditional Cadillac customers were alienated by this compact impostor that diluted the brand's prestigious image. Cadillac had hoped to attract younger buyers, but instead created a car that satisfied neither traditional luxury customers nor BMW shoppers. The Cimarron damaged Cadillac's reputation so severely that the brand spent decades trying to recover its luxury credibility. Though production lasted until 1988, the Cimarron became a cautionary tale about the dangers of cynical marketing and cutting corners in the luxury segment. Number 7. The 2001 Pontiac Aztek. The 2001 Pontiac Aztek is universally recognized as one of the ugliest vehicles ever mass-produced, but its problems went far beyond aesthetics. Originally conceived as a bold crossover that would appeal to younger, active buyers, the Aztek went through a disastrous development process. The initial concept car was relatively attractive, but GM's cost-cutting measures and bureaucratic design-by-committee approach transformed it into a visual monstrosity. The body featured an incongruous collection of angles, awkward proportions, and plastic cladding that made it look like it had been assembled from parts of different vehicles. Beyond its controversial appearance, the Aztek suffered from numerous practical issues. The interior was filled with hard, cheap plastics despite its $24,000 base price and about $39,000 today. The 3.4-liter V6 engine produced an adequate 185 horsepower, but was paired with a sluggish 4-speed automatic transmission that hurt both performance and fuel economy. Visibility was compromised by the unusual window line and split rear glass. While the Aztek did feature some innovative ideas, like an optional tent attachment and removable center console that doubled as a cooler, these couldn't overcome its fundamental flaws. GM had projected sales of 75,000 units annually, but never sold more than 27,000 in a single year. The Aztek was discontinued after just 5 years, but its legacy as a design disaster lives on, ironically, finding redemption years later only through its association with the TV. Character Walter White in Breaking Bad. Number 6. The 2003 Hummer H2. The 2003 Hummer H2 epitomized America's pre-recession excess and environmental tone deafness. Based on GM's heavy-duty truck platform, this civilian pseudo-military vehicle weighed over 6,400 pounds, heavier than many full-sized pickup trucks, yet offered less practical utility. The H2's massive bulk was powered by a 6.0-liter V8 engine that struggled to move its weight, resulting in abysmal fuel economy estimated between 8 to 10 miles per gallon. Despite its intimidating exterior dimensions, the interior was surprisingly cramped, with limited cargo space and poor visibility. The H2's off-road capability, while better than many civilian SUVs, was compromised by its excessive weight and size, making it too wide for many trails. On-road performance was equally disappointing, with ponderous handling, a harsh ride, and weak brakes that struggled to stop its enormous mass. The H2's styling mimicked the military-derived H1 but without the functional purpose, creating what critics called a parody of ruggedness that cost around $50,000, approximately $78,000 today. Perhaps most damning was the H2's timing. It reached peak popularity just as environmental consciousness and fuel prices were rising, making it a rolling symbol of wasteful consumption. Sales plummeted after the 2008 financial crisis, and the H2 was discontinued in 2009 when GM phased out the entire Hummer brand during bankruptcy proceedings. Number 5. The 1975 AMC Pacer. The 1975 AMC Pacer was marketed as the first wide small car, but this bizarre glass fishbowl on wheels proved that innovation without purpose leads to failure. The Pacer's unusual design featured a body that was wider than it was long, with an asymmetrical door design. The passenger door was 4 inches longer than the driver's door, and a bulbous greenhouse with nearly 37% of the car's surface area being glass. This created a greenhouse effect that made the interior unbearably hot in summer, despite the air conditioning. Originally designed for a lightweight Wankel rotary engine that never materialized, AMC was forced to use their existing straight-six engine, which was too large for the car's stubby nose. This required the engine to be mounted so far back that routine maintenance like changing spark plugs required removing the windshield washer bottle, air cleaner, and sometimes even the car's battery. The Pacer's weight, a hefty 3,000 pounds, combined with underpowered engines 70 to 120 horsepower depending on configuration, resulted in sluggish acceleration and poor fuel economy despite its compact dimensions. The car's handling was compromised by its unusual proportions and heavy glass, earning it the nickname Flying Terrarium. While the Pacer's futuristic styling initially attracted buyers, with over 145,000 sold in its first year, sales quickly plummeted as its practical limitations became apparent. Though discontinued after just 5 years, the Pacer remains an iconic symbol of 1970s design excess and misguided innovation. Number 4. The 1957 Trabant P50. The 1957 Trabant P50 from East Germany represents perhaps the most stark example of automotive stagnation in history. Manufactured by VEB Sachsenring in the German Democratic Republic, the Trabant was designed as the communist answer to the Volkswagen Beetle, an affordable people's car for the masses. However, due to severe material shortages, the body was constructed not from steel but from duroplast, a plastic reinforced with cotton waste and recycled wool. This material, while innovative in theory, was prone to cracking and offered minimal crash protection. Power, using that term loosely, came from a two-stroke, two-cylinder engine producing just 18 horsepower, requiring a mix of oil and gasoline that created notorious blue smoke clouds and a distinctive lawnmower-like sound. The 0 to 60 mile/hour time was a glacial 21 seconds, with a top speed of about 70 miles per hour. Basic features taken for granted in Western cars, like turn signals, brake lights, and fuel gauges, were either afterthoughts or absent entirely. Most remarkably, the basic design remained virtually unchanged for over 30 years until production finally ended in 1991 after German reunification. Despite these obvious deficiencies, East Germans would typically wait 10 to 15 years on a waiting list to purchase one. As it was one of the only cars available to ordinary citizens, over 3 million were produced, and the Trabant ironically became a symbol of freedom when thousands of East Germans drove them across the border when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. Number 3. The 1996 Suzuki X90. The 1996 Suzuki X90 defied automotive categorization, creating a vehicle that excelled at absolutely nothing. This bizarre two-seater combined elements of an SUV, sports car, and convertible into a confused package that satisfied none of these roles. Based on the Suzuki Sidekick Sacher Geo Tracker platform, the X90 featured a T-top roof, tiny trunk, and SUV-like ground clearance, but with virtually no off-road capability, despite offering four-wheel drive on some models. Its 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine produced a meager 95 horsepower, resulting in lethargic acceleration and a 0 to 60 time of around 10.8 seconds. The peculiar styling, featuring a bulbous cabin perched atop a truncated SUV body, made it look like an automotive mistake, drawing ridicule rather than admiration. With only 2 seats and minimal cargo space, a mere 8.4 cubic feet, the X90 lacked the practicality of an SUV, while its high center of gravity and truck-based suspension meant it couldn't deliver sports car handling either. Despite its compact dimensions, fuel economy was an unimpressive 25 miles per gallon highway. Suzuki priced this automotive oddity at $13,999 and about $26,000 today, inexplicably higher than the more practical Sidekick from which it was derived. Unsurprisingly, sales were dismal, with fewer than 7,200 units sold in North America before Suzuki mercifully discontinued it after just 2 years. The X90's only lasting success was as a promotional vehicle for Red Bull, which mounted giant cans on the backs of these automotive curiosities, finally finding a use for a car that had none. Number 2. The 2001 Chrysler PT Cruiser. The 2001 Chrysler PT Cruiser convertible took an already questionable design concept and made it exponentially worse by removing structural rigidity. The standard PT Cruiser, with its retro styling meant to evoke 1930s American cars, was polarizing but at least functionally sound as a small wagon. The convertible version, however, sacrificed practically everything that made the hardtop version sensible. Removing the roof created enormous structural problems, resulting in severe chassis flex and cowl shake over even minor road imperfections. To compensate for the loss of rigidity, Chrysler added substantial bracing that added weight while simultaneously reducing the already limited cargo space to nearly nothing. The awkward proportions were made worse by an ungainly convertible top that, when folded down, sat prominently on the rear deck like a lumpy backpack. The design required an unsightly roll hoop behind the front seats, and the tiny rear windows created massive blind spots. Performance suffered from the additional 150 pounds of weight, making the underpowered 150 horsepower four-cylinder engine feel even more strained. The interior featured low-quality plastics with panel gaps large enough to slide a finger through, while wind noise was excessive even by convertible standards. Priced at around $19,995, approximately $32,000 today, the PT Cruiser convertible offered poor value compared to more competent convertibles of the era. Despite these obvious shortcomings, Chrysler inexplicably continued production until 2008, creating what many automotive journalists considered one of the worst convertibles ever mass-produced. Number 1. The 2003 Chevrolet SSRY. The 2003 Chevrolet SSR stands as perhaps the most confused vehicle ever created. A convertible pickup truck with retro styling that failed at being either a sports car, a practical truck, or a comfortable cruiser. General Motors spent approximately $250 million developing this automotive oddity that answered a question nobody asked. Based on the company's midsize SUV platform, the Supersport Roadster featured a retractable hardtop, flared fenders meant to evoke 1950s Chevrolet trucks, and a small truck bed that was too shallow and short for practical use. The initial models were powered by an underwhelming 5.3-liter V8, producing 300 horsepower. inadequate for moving the vehicle's massive 4,700-pound weight with any authority. The resulting performance was sluggish, with a 0 to 60 time of 7.7 seconds, unacceptable for a supposed performance vehicle carrying the Super Sport name. The handling was equally disappointing, with excessive body roll and poor dynamics stemming from its truck-based chassis. The interior featured cheap plastic trim despite the vehicle's premium price tag of approximately $42,000 and about $65,000 today. The retractable roof mechanism, while impressive technically, reduced the already minimal cargo space when folded. Later models received a more powerful 6.0-liter, 400-horsepower engine, but this came too late to save the vehicle's reputation. GM projected annual sales of 13,000 units, but never sold more than 9,000 in a single year. The SSR was discontinued after just 3 years of production, having failed to find an audience among sports car enthusiasts, truck buyers, or convertible shoppers. Today, it stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when automotive designers and executives create a vehicle without a clear purpose or target market. The history of automotive design is filled with bold innovations and calculated risks, but the vehicles we've examined represent something altogether different. Fundamental failures of concept, execution, or market understanding. From cynical badge engineering to deadly design flaws and confused vehicle identities, these automotive disasters remind us that even major corporations with massive resources can make catastrophic misjudgments. While some of these vehicles have found a certain ironic appreciation among collectors and enthusiasts years later, they remain powerful examples of what happens when manufacturers prioritize styling gimmicks, marketing shortcuts, or corporate ego over solid engineering and customer needs. As we move into an era of increasingly advanced automotive technology, these historical failures serve as important reminders that innovation without purpose, quality, and genuine consumer benefit leads not to progress, but to expensive and sometimes dangerous mistakes that ultimately question the sensibility of the companies that created them.